Hello everyone, my name is Waffle and welcome to the 7th episode of Strats Explained, Magically Easy, a video series where I explain how and why different strats and glitches that speedrunners use work. Today we will talk about how pickups, replays and pickups and replays work. In particular, I'll explain how teleportation with a save icon works, or why sometimes it actually doesn't. The original suggestion was quite specific, that's why I contacted the author and we decided to expand the topic so I can tell you more interesting facts. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let me first show you what we are going to discuss today. This strat is mainly used in the second half of an 90% no-SSU speedrun of GTA Vice City. Notice how Guy Wiz is making a replay over a save icon location in the mansion. Right now you cannot see it because he is answering a call, and as you probably know, you cannot save during phone calls. What we should remember. First of all, the replay was quite short. If I didn't tell you he was making one, you could miss it. Second, he made it 34 minutes into the run. Later we will come back to that number. After one mission, so roughly 3 minutes later, Guy Wiz plays that replay. Once again, everything happened so quickly, so here's this segment in slow motion. Now we can clearly see that the save icon is actually there, even though we are on a call again. A little bit later I'll explain why, but what's important here is that we pick it up. Fast forward to the end of the run, we enter the bridge, the save menu pops up, and we get teleported to the mansion. So, let's recap. We made the replay 34 minutes into the run, 3 minutes later we activated it, and 9 more minutes later we finally see the results. Unfortunately, sometimes teleportation doesn't work, and you lose more than 20 seconds because of it. And that's way too much for such a short category. Turns out, if that ever happens, then the player is the one to blame. Apparently, after you picked up the save icon, you cannot collect 20 or more other pickups. And by pickups I mean almost everything. Save icons, close icons, money, weapons, armor, health, police bribes. You get the point. And 20 might sound like a big limit, but don't forget that during that 9-minute segment you have to complete the rest of the missions as soon as possible, which means collecting bribes, and even using the same teleportation tricks, but in a different place. So if you want the trick to work, you have to be very careful. We will start with talking about how save icons work. So each save icon has its own script, but they all are very similar, so we're just going to look at one of them. Of course I chose the mention one, and as you can see, the code is quite short, and it mostly consists of various checks. Let's see what they do. The first one is player playing? This one is basically almost always true unless you're getting busted or if you're wasted. The second one is more interesting. It is player in zone? Star I. Star I is of course short for Starfish Island, and this condition basically checks if you're inside this zone. Right now, on the map you can see the borders of this zone. I'm going to leave a link to this map in the description so you can check the other zones as well. To show the borders you have to press Ctrl Z. Alright, the next one is can player start mission? This one is once again almost always true, apart from situations like when you're falling from something. The next one is flag player on mission equal to 0. So this is a variable, and it's 0 when you're in free roam, and it is 1 when you're on the mission or answering call, etc. If it is 0, we are getting in this branch. If it's 1, we're getting in this one. So let's suppose we are not on the mission. Then we check if remove mission pickup is equal to 0. If it is, then we create a pickup save, add these coordinates, and we say that this variable is now 1. So this variable basically tells us if the save icon is present on the map. If it is 1, then the save icon is present. If it's 0, then the save icon doesn't exist. Okay, later we check has pickup been collected. If it has been collected, then we basically open the save menu and then we set player coordinates to these coordinates. As you can see, they are very similar to the one where the save icon is spawned. So this is basically how the teleportation part works. Alright, what happens next? What if we are on the mission and in the zone star I? Well, we get into this branch. And it says, if the pickup is present on the map, remove it. So pretty simple. If we are on the island and the pickup is present and we are on the mission, then the pickup goes away, so we cannot save during phone calls or missions. And as you can see, after that it goes back up there and it does everything over and over and over again. And it does it every 250 milliseconds, so quarter of a second. Alright, let's sum it up. If we are in the zone, then if we're on the mission, the save icon gets deleted. If we're not on the mission, the save icon gets created. If we leave the island while the save icon is still present on the island, it doesn't matter what happens next. Like you see, if this condition is false and the save icon is present on the map, then it doesn't matter if we start a mission or if we answer a phone call, the save icon is going to stay there, because all of this code is never gonna get executed, because we are not in the zone. Likewise, if we leave the island during the mission and then we finish that mission or fail it, then the icon is not going to appear until we get back on the island. Let's see how this knowledge compares to what we've seen on the video. Recording a replay during a phone call. The icon isn't there because the game thinks we are on a mission. Completing the mission while being in the zone. The icon is getting created. Leaving the zone. Starting from this point, the code inside of the loop stops getting executed. Therefore, the icon doesn't get removed when we answer a phone call, which allows us to pick it up in a replay. Finally, we get back on the bridge, wait until the phone call ends, then we cross the border, it opens the menu and it teleports us. It is important to first end the phone call and only then cross the border. Otherwise, the game is going to spawn a new save icon and it's going to forget about the old one completely. Now we're looking at RE City, and here's our command has pickup being collected. As you can see, there is not much going on here. We basically have only one check. Is pickup picked up? Not equal to 0. But what is this function? Let's see. Okay, here we have a for loop that starts with 0, goes until num collected pickups and increments by 1 on each iteration. Inside of the loop we check if our pickups that we provided by pickup ID is located in an array called aPickupsCollected. Judging by the name we can guess that this array contains all of the pickups that we collected. Let's see how big it is. It is exactly num collected pickups big, which is the value that we saw in the loop earlier. Okay, but what exactly is that number? It is 20. 20 as I previously mentioned in the video. Okay, what's next? If we found that pickup in that pickups collected array, then we basically remove it from the array by setting it to 0 and we return true. If our pickup wasn't in that aPickupsCollected collected array, we return false. So we call this function with some pickup. If that pickup was collected, we return true. If that pickup wasn't collected, we return false. But what about adding items to this array? How does that work? To answer this question, I'm going to press Shift plus F12, and in the bottom window I'm going to choose this option because I know it's the correct one. As you can see, it brings us to Add to Collected Pickups array. But before we talk about how this function works, I want to tell you where it's used. If we scroll a little bit lower, we'll see that there is a cPickups update, and at the very end we have these two for loops that go through all of the pickups that are in-game, and for every single existing pickup, this function calls an update on it. I'm not going to explain how this update function works in details because it is very big. As you probably know, GTA has a lot of different pickups and they work differently. For example, we can collect weapons only on foot, but if we talk about something like police bribes, then we collect them even while being in a vehicle. So that's why this function is so big. It checks for every single type, and depending on the type it does something different. But in short, this function checks if we are touching the pickup, and then if we are touching the pickup, it checks if we can collect it. You might ask, but how is it possible to not collect a pickup if you are touching it? Let's go back to police bribes. If you don't have any wanted level, you cannot collect these bribes even if you are touching them. So, if you are touching the pickup and you can collect it, the function returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. Let's go back to Add to Collected Pickups array. Here we have an index called Collected Pickup Index. It starts with 0. and every single time we call this function, it increments by 1. When we call this function for the very first time, we put our new pickup in slot number 0, and index becomes 1. When we call the function for the second time, we put a pickup in slot 1, and index becomes 2, and so on. When we put an item in slot 19, then the index becomes 20, and this condition becomes true because 20 is more or equal to 20. And as you can see, we reset that index back to 0, which means that we will start filling the array from the very beginning. What's important here? As you can see, there are no checks for the slots we're putting our pickups in. So for example, if that slot already contains an information about the pickup, we'll still override it with new data because there are no checks. And that's why in speedruns, if you collect 20 or more pickups, the save teleportation trick will not work. The game will simply forget that you ever collected this save icon. The initial question asked why is the maximum size of this array exactly 20, not less or not more. Only developers can answer this question correctly, but I can try to guess. Let's try with why it is not less. I imagine that you are in a situation that is shown on the screenshot. You want to collect all of the money pickups, there are like 6 or 7 here, but you accidentally touch the save icon first. If the maximum size of the array was, let's say, 3, then you could get in a situation similar to the one in speedruns. The game could forget that you ever collected that save icon, and it will not reappear until you enter the area while being on a mission. Of course, this is a made-up example, but something like that can very well happen in a normal gameplay as well. And what if we are talking about some important pickup from a mission? You collected it, but the game never progressed. What then? To prevent situations like this from happening, developers chose a big enough number. Could it be less? Yeah, sure, I think 10 would be enough. Could it be even bigger? Of course, but there's literally no point in that. And the reason is not even a memory limitation or a performance hit. This is just a rare situation where more doesn't mean better. Since I briefly mentioned this for loop, let me tell you an interesting story about a bug that is present here. As I said before, this loop is here to process all of the pickups that are present in game. This A pickups array is 320 elements long. As you can see, it doesn't process everything on one frame, it does it in chunks. So each frame it works with roughly 50 pickups, which is nothing new because we already saw a similar situation in the 5th episode when we talked about the object pool. The issue here is it never gets to 320, and here's why. Let's look at this condition here. As you can see, it's quite long, so let's change all of the variables to their corresponding values. As I said, non-general pickups is 320. Pickups frame span is defined right here, and it is 6, so let's change it there and there. Here we calculate a remainder of division by 6, and since we want to get the maximum value, we take the maximum possible remainder, which is obviously 5. 5 plus 1 is 6, I guess we can count that in our head. And we end up with something rather short and simple, 300 divided by 6 multiplied by 6. If I ask you, how much is that, you'll tell me, of course it's 320, so what's the problem? Well, here's a catch. If you ask a C or a C++ program the same question, you'll get a different answer. And here's why. Division in C and C++ works in an interesting manner. If both of the operands are integers, and well, this is our case because it's 320 and 6, then the result of the operation is also going to be an integer. And that's why when you divide 320 by 6, you end up with exactly 53. Not less or not more. And 53 multiplied by 6 is, well, 318. If some pickup spawns in one of these two last slots, the game will never process them, and that means that you won't be able to pick them up. You might be wondering, okay, but how do we fix this interesting bug? Let's go back to this simple expression, and all you have to do is change the order of the operations, so it becomes 320 multiplied by 6 and then divided by 6. This way the answer is going to be 320. no matter how you count it. And obviously don't forget to change the order here as well, because as you can see, it's wrong here too. Such a simple mistake to make and such a hard one to spot. By the way, this same loop explains why in speedruns your replays have to be at least 6 frames long. I'm talking about replays where you want to collect something. As I said, all of the pickups are processed in 6 different frames, and if your replay is shorter than that, there is a chance that the pickup you want to collect is not going to be processed while the replay is active, and therefore you won't pick it up. The last thing we need to talk about is how replays work. Of course, the replay system is very complicated, so we are just going to look at the basics to understand what is going on. We are going to start with play replay from HD. HD is short for hard drive. This function first opens your replay file and loads its content. Then it calls trigger playback. Here an important part is mode. It gets set to mode playback, remember that. Later, let's scroll a little bit further, we see store stuff in mem call. What does it do? It basically stores your current state of the game in the memory. All of the vehicles, all of the pedestrians, objects, pickups, player wanted level, information about players that includes your money and information about weapons and much more, time, weather, etc. The whole game state is stored when you try to play a replay. Next we call empty pets and vehicle pools, so we basically delete all of the pedestrians, including your player, and all of the vehicles. We do that to basically clear some space so we have enough room for the stuff that we are going to load from the replay file. And after that we need to go back to mode playback. Once again I'm going to press Shift plus F12 and choose the first reference. It brings us to cReplay update, and as we can see, if our mode is mode playback, we call playback this frame. Inside we call playback this frame interpolation. And this is where all of the stuff from replay actually gets added in game. Vehicles, bikes if we're playing Vice City, pedestrians, including our player, the one that we had when we were recording the replay. So when you see a player character during a replay playback, this is a real player. He can collect everything: money, weapons, health, save icons, close icons, etc. And he will get all of the bonuses from these pickups as well. Okay, but you might ask, why do we lose that money and weapons when the replay ends? To answer this question we have to go way back, and here it is. When the replay ends we call finish playback. First of all we clear all pools to get some space again. Then we restore stuff from memory. We restore all of the vehicles, pedestrians, objects. Then we restore all of the pickups, player wanted level, player information that once again includes everything: money, weapons, etc. We restore time, weather, and so on. So yeah, you can collect stuff in replays and you will get these bonuses, but unfortunately when the replay ends, we restore the old state, including information about player. By the way, this also explains why in GTA 3, game where you can collect police bribes using a replay, you can do it over and over again, without any extra delay, without waiting until they respawn. When the playback ends, the game simply puts the bribe back because it was stored in memory, and therefore you can pick it up again. And of course, this video won't be complete if I don't tell you how to fix the main issue. To do so, we go back to cPickups update and we put these two lines in the very beginning. These two lines will not allow you to collect anything during replays. isPlayingBack is a very simple function. It simply returns true if our mode is mode playback, the one that we saw earlier. So when a replay is active, none of this code gets executed because we simply return, and therefore no pickups are getting processed. By the way, this solution was taken from GTA San Andreas. Whew, this video is finally reaching its end. Today I explained a lot of mechanics related to pickups and replays, so if something was unclear or if you have any other question related to the topic, feel free to ask it in the comments. I will try to answer everything. To explain today's challenge, let's go back to the teleportation trick. I already mentioned that after speedrunners pick up the save icon, they have to collect other icons as well, simply because it allows them to complete the rest of the game as quickly as possible. Your task is to count how many pickups they actually collect before the teleportation itself happens. It will help us understand how much wiggle room they have in terms of collecting something useless. A poll for the next topic is going to appear on the community tab in roughly 3 days after this video is released. I will also put a link to it in the pinned comment. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you don't want to miss the next episode, consider subscribing. My name is Wofil. See you the next time.